Good morning, everybody. It's Paul Fileman here from Transmentum. In a moment, I'm going to introduce my colleague, Steve Potts. This morning's webinar is it's about building an effective sales strategy. And our objective this morning is to give you some tools and some things that you can do in your business that will improve the effectiveness of your sales team. And the questions that I'd like to start with are: do you understand how you feel about your team's current performance? Because your company can only go where your sales team take it, and nothing happens in any business until somebody makes a sale. So are you sure you're 100% in control of the sales team's activity? Are you sure they represent your business in the way that you want them to, and in the way that your customers and prospects and suspects expect them to? Do they bring good quality, well-documented business that your implementation team can deliver easily, or do they leave the team back at the office to pick up the pieces and sort out the mess that they've created? If you are the sales team, how do you feel about selling? Do you feel good about it, or are you frustrated? Do you have a clear strategy, established management processes, and are you getting the right things in front of the customer? It's a practiced art with potentially no qualifications, yet growth can only come from sales. And in this morning's webinar, we're going to talk about sales strategy, about sales management and sales execution. Please take notes as we go and be on the lookout for things that you can start doing differently straight away. And now I'm going to ask Transmentum's sales expert, Steve Potts, to introduce himself and start taking you into the meat of the webinar. Over to you, Steve.
Thank you, Paul. Hello, everybody. My name's Steve Potts, and I'm the Director of Transmentum, accountable for growth. In other words, I'm the sales guy, and I'm very proud of that. I have been selling for 30 years. 16 of those I was sales director for a telecoms manufacturer with a team of 20 salespeople selling directly to end users. I managed a reseller channel of 40 resellers, and we sold that business in 2000 for 10 million. After that, I got a senior job at Cable & Wireless as National Sales Manager, selling big-ticket hosting solutions into the City of London, which, as you can imagine, was a lot of fun. Around about 2002, I got a European job with a US international internet service provider, and I ran a sales team there that launched Hosted Exchange, as it was called in those days, and SharePoint across an e-commerce platform across 8 European countries. I started my own business as a business coach and consultant in 2000, and my clients have included PLCs like Colt Telecom, Telstra, Carphone Warehouse, and the Pearson Group, who own the Financial Times and Penguin Publishing, and many IT resellers across the UK. We started Transmentum 2 years ago, which is when I met Paul and our colleague Adam, and we look to help IT resellers specifically increase their sales. Having said that, the presentation this morning, it doesn't matter what you're selling. I'm going to be talking about the basics of sales strategy and sales management. I'm going to share with you some selling tips that have served me well over the years. And I want to say I love salespeople. I enjoy working with salespeople. I enjoy managing salespeople. And one of the reasons is that is because without salespeople, businesses don't grow. And businesses, particularly in the SME world, below 500 million turnover, either grow or they die. And if you're a good audience and I get some interesting questions, at the very end of this webinar, I'm going to give you all a life-changing question. I'm going to give you a question that over the years has allowed me to earn a lot of money. The first thing I want to talk about under sales strategy is the importance of identifying target markets. There are many different aspects to identifying your target market. Geography is an important one, particularly for managed service providers. If you're going to use remote maintenance software, you probably have less engineers spending time in their car and spending more productive time supporting your clients. That can increase the geographic range of your business. Do you sell business to business, or do you sell business to consumer? Who is most likely to buy your products and services? Who may have bought from you before, and are there other kinds of companies that would buy from you again? Have you got sufficient case studies and reference sites from your chosen target markets? And do you have within your organisation specific specialist products and services and expertise that might allow you to really fly in one sector? For example, if you picked the education sector, it may well be that you've got an engineer that has a really good understanding of what that sector needs, and you can turn that into a very valid sales presentation. If you picked the education centre, again, just as an example, you may choose to pick a particular market within there. You may identify that universities and technical colleges have sufficient desktops to warrant providing a managed service. It may be that primary schools don't have the budget. And that can be true whether you're going to the auto sector or the manufacturing sector or the professional services sector. You really need to consider which part of that sector and which target market you're going for. And it's very, very important to have a marketing mix. Don't have all your eggs in one basket. In the business that I was the sales director of for 16 years, we had a major accounts vertical. We specialised in the retail sector because we understood supermarkets and food distributors in particular and what they needed. We had a general sales team that sold to any SME that we could find that would want to buy our products and services. And then we had a very specialist team of 2 people that sold to very, very large vendors. So it's important to have a mix, and I'm not suggesting you should just focus on one specific target market. Once you've identified the routes to market, once you've identified the target market you're going for, you really need to decide which is the best route to that market. And there are several options, and on this slide I've only put a few of them. A directly employed sales team is one option. Distributors and resellers is another. Now, if you're a reseller or a small organisation, you may wonder why you would want resellers, but it's quite valid. I've got a client that turns over just under £1 million, but he's got some sophisticated engineering specialisms that a couple of smaller companies in his geographic area don't have. So he's actually resold his services through them, and both parties have benefited. Sales agents are another route to market, as indeed these days there's an ever-growing opportunity to sell products and services online. Referrals programs are another route to market. A retail presence in the high street may well still be a valid route to go. The high street is still a healthy place for certain products and services. Or it may be a combination of all those. Let's just have a look at them very briefly. A direct sales team provide the highest profit levels. They give you control over the quality and they have a commitment. But it also demands a high cost of funding and management of the appropriate resources. If you go the reseller route, well, you'll share some of the profits with the reseller, but you'll also share some of the cost of sale and some of the cost of demand generation. And what I mean by demand generation is putting a marketing plan together that generates inbound inquiries. A sales team is a very expensive asset, and you don't want them out knocking cold calling. You want them sitting in front of people who are going to buy. So a sound marketing plan in support of that sales team is essential. Sales agents are a very, very low cost of sale. However, they have no commitment and you have no control over their work effort, the amount of people they see, or indeed the quality of what they say. You can just hope that they represent your product and service in a professional manner. Online sales has a very, very low cost of sale, but a very, very high cost of demand generation. When you start to get into SEO and Google AdWords, if you're going to drive sufficient number of prospects to your website, you're going to have to really put a lot of effort and a lot of investment and a lot of clever planning into that. It's not as simple as a lot of people would have you believe. Referrals is a very low cost of sale and usually works with existing customers. I was with an IT reseller the other day who'd got a really good business in a town in the north of England, a retail outlet selling laptops to all sorts of people. And in the back office, round the back, they've got a B2B, a business-to-business IT services company. When I asked the business owner where he found the business for the business-to-business business from, too many businesses there, he told me that a lot of the members of the public who come into the shop and buy things actually run businesses, and he often finds clients from that particular route to market. So a question to leave you with on this slide is, which combination is right for you? It depends on many things: geography, sector, targets within that sector, industry knowledge, and who's bought from you before. Something that's very important, and I find in these days is often missed, is it's very important to have a revenue-generating supplier policy. Your suppliers are partners. In the old days, it was all about beating the supplier up on price and ringing 3 different suppliers and finding out who gave the best price to allow you to win the best margin. These days, we need to be looking more and more for partnerships that will endure for years to come. Select your partners very carefully. Check out the ones that have got complementary relationships. For example, Kaseya, who do remote maintenance software, often work alongside Autotask, who do the help desk. I've been to many exhibitions where the Autotask and Kaseya salespeople are working together. Are your suppliers working together, or are many of them do these days? Understand those relationships and leverage them. Does the supplier you're looking for have comprehensive APIs, Application Programmers Interface? This is a document that allows one package to link to another. If you're going to start selling remote maintenance software, does it link into your Sage or CRM systems? It's important to look and find out how all of these systems fit together in the package of services that you offer. And how good is the product training? Do you get the kind of support that you need from your supplier? So have a good, long, hard think about your supplier strategy, because it is actually key to having a successful sales strategy. I'd like to talk for a few minutes about what selling is all about and understanding what selling is all about. And the first thing I want to do is I want to dismiss a myth that I hear time and time again, particularly in the technology sector. People are constantly, particularly in the days of cloud, talking about educating the market. You cannot educate the market. You may, if you're Microsoft, spend millions and millions of pounds communicating with the market, but the market can't be educated because they don't care. I'm a candlestick maker from Yorkshire. I'm not interested in MSP and cloud and all that technology. All I'm interested in is how can I make more candles more efficiently and sell more of them and make more profit. They don't have time to learn about the technology. They don't want to know about the technology. My candlestick maker wants to make more candles faster. And a lot of them won't be able to understand. And one of the things that many salespeople miss is that's the very reason you've been invited to see the prospect, to help them understand how the technology can drive their business. So the next time you hear a colleague talk about educating the market, give them a kick under the table, because it can't be done. And in my 30 years, I've never met anybody other than a few people like Microsoft who've got the budget to educate the market. It's just too big a task for all of us on this call to achieve. Okay, let's spend a few minutes looking at managing sales team. I could probably do an 8-hour webinar on this subject alone, so I'm just going to give you some highlights. And I'm going to pick something that I've noticed over the past couple of months is often misunderstood. I had a client yesterday who's got a great customer relationship management program that provides him with all this information, but he wasn't actually using it, and he's actually missing an opportunity to increase the effectiveness of his sales team. The first thing I want to talk about is what is a closing ratio. I did some research on the internet the other day, and it's often misquoted. A closing ratio for me is simply defined as the number of completed sales that a person makes, that means a signed deal, in relation to the number of sales presentations or sales meeting that he or she makes to a qualified prospect. Later in this webinar, I'm going to talk about qualification, but you need your salespeople talking to people who are going to buy, and I'm going to give you some tools to identify the ones that are going to buy and the ones that aren't going to buy. So what closing ratios should I expect from a sales team? Well, the numbers I'm about to give you are 100 years old and are as relevant if you're selling rubber, if you're selling technology, if you're selling metal, if you're selling bricks, whatever you're selling, these closing ratios are typically about the sales process rather than the product. It's an established fact through research that business owners close 1 in 2 deals. So if you're a business owner on this call, you should close 50% of the qualified prospects that you talk to. The reason for that is you probably know more about your products and services, more about the processes and systems, and have the credibility to talk very authoritatively to prospects. That's why you should be expected to be closing 50% of all the qualified prospects you sit in front of. New business is harder. If you employ a new business salesperson, they're going to close 1 in 4, and they're only going to do that when they're fully up to speed with your products and processes and the needs of your chosen target markets. A new business salesperson may close 1 in 7, 1 in 5. As they get better, after 3 or 4 months, their closing ratio should get down to 1 in 4, which is your goal. And one of the reasons for that is that they have to break buying chains in many occasions. Many people have already got a supplier for your product and service, and the new business salesperson has to break into that new buying chain or compete with somebody selling something similar to yourself. Account managers, they close usually 1 in 3. They're selling to existing people, and it's a little bit easier to sell to existing people because they've already bought your company, your service delivery team, and they're already on board with what it is that you offer. I'd like to talk just for a few minutes about some very simple maths that you can do to measure the performance of your sales team. Pipeline value is on a month-by-month or week-by-week basis the estimated value of the qualified prospects that your sales team are talking to. So if a guy's talking to 5 clients and they're worth £1,000 potentially each, then the pipeline value is £5,000. If you divide that figure by the closing ratio, and that tells you you need to know the closing ratio of each salesperson in your team, and many of you using Salesforce and some of the CRM systems out there will find this information is automatically recorded for you. That should give you an idea of how much business is going to be won this month. So, if the salesperson's target is £10,000, they need on a month-by-month basis a pipeline value of £30,000 if they're a 1 in 3 person, £50,000 if they're a 1 in 5 person, and £70,000 if they're a 1 in 7 person. So as you can see, recording the pipeline value and the closing ratio of your sales team is a very, very effective way of managing a sales team. There are some ways you can help your team manage their pipeline, and this is absolutely key to some of the success I've had in sales. Good, loyal, hard-working salespeople don't mislead you, they mislead themselves. They convince themselves that things are a lot better than they really are. Most sales teams only ever win 40% of what they forecast. And one of the reasons for that is because they're very, very optimistic. They have to be. But also, they don't want to let you, the business owner, down, so they always paint things in the brightest possible light. One of the ways you can really help them is by asking them a few questions. Some key questions are, do you have knowledge of the decision-making unit? I'm going to talk about that in a few more slides. There is always a decision-making unit. When I was self-employed and I was a one-man band, there were 2 people in my decision-making unit because I always discussed my big capital purchases like new cars and new computers with my wife. There are always more than one decision-maker in any business. They need to have knowledge of requirements of the customer. I will not have a salesperson forecasting business to me unless they can tell me in some depth what that customer needs and demonstrate to me that they understand those needs. They also need to understand the compelling event. I'm going to talk about this in a few minutes' time. It's an absolute critical component of decision making and of closing business. They need to understand who the competition is. If your salespeople can't tell you who is competing against them, they haven't had the right kind of conversation with the prospect. There is always competition for your products and services. It may be budget internally for a different project. It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody else making the same offering as you. You may be competing for budget or for time with other people in the organisation. Salespeople need to understand that. The final thing when managing a pipeline is there needs to be a rational assessment of the chance of winning the deal. And only the salesperson who's met the client or customer can do that. Use the time of managing the pipeline to communicate, to educate and to motivate your sales team. It's your opportunity to be a positive influence on closing business. So who said what? What are the compelling events? What are the next steps? What are the dates for the next meeting? Who are the competition? These are all questions that you can ask to help your team deliver. And remember, if you set your sales team targets, targets must be believable to be achievable. I'd now like to address one of my favourite topics, archetypes, the types of salespeople. There are a plethora of different kinds of salespeople doing different functions in many, many organisations. But fundamentally, they come down to two particular types of people, and they are very, very different. I'm going to take you into an area now that many of our clients make a mistake about this particular aspect of sales. Let's first of all talk about hunters. They focus on the acquisition of new clients. If you want to grow your business, hire a hunter, but be very careful. They're very dangerous animals, and they can bite. You need to keep them hungry, reward them generously, or else they may eat your time up. Their job is to find new business, bring it in, and move on to the next hunt. So pay them on order. Don't pay them on invoice or delivery. Delivering your services and supporting it is somebody else's job. You want that hunter, who is a very valuable asset, out as quick as possible, chasing the next deal. If you pay him on invoice, he'll spend the next 3 or 4 weeks making sure everybody else in your organisation does their job properly, because he wants to make sure he or she gets paid their commission at the end. So I always paid my salespeople when they brought an order in. It had to be a clean order, and it had to be accepted by the delivery team, and it had to have all the paperwork in order. But as soon as the delivery team took acceptance of that, I wanted the salesperson back out in the field, bringing the next one in. Only once in 16 years did I have to pay a salesman commission on a deal that wasn't invoiced, and that wasn't the salesperson's fault. It was because the business went out of business halfway through the deal through circumstances we could never have predicted. So pay them on order, not on invoice. Don't pay them on turnover, because if you do, they'll give your profit away. If they must have the ability to negotiate with a client. So make sure that they're paid on profit. That will keep them honest and will keep them looking after your interests. If you pay them on turnover, it's too easy for them to knock money off a deal, and you could end up with sales that are not cost effective. And they're special kinds of people hunters. Don't expect them to stay with you forever. They will probably end up running their own business or going to work for a competitor that can afford to offer them more money than you are. A typical hunter is male or female, 25 to 35 years of age, and round about the late 20s, early 30s is where they are really at their best. Further on in life, they get promoted, they get ambition to run their own business, and they move on. Hunters are very transitionary animals. You need to set the standards and make them stick to them, because they will be rule breakers. Hunters are very difficult people to manage. In fact, the salesperson that brought me the most business over the years was the one that was the hardest to manage. I always had issues and problems with him, but they were far outweighed by the volume and the value of the business that he brought into my organisation. There's no room in any organisation for pushy, arrogant salespeople. You need to look for people who are professional. And one of the ways of doing that, when you interview these hunters, these special people, you need to make sure that their values, their moral compass is the same as yours. If ever a salesperson, particularly a hunter, told me they were going to bring clients with them from their past employment, they never got past the interview. Because if they're going to steal somebody else's clients and bring them to me, when they leave me, they're going to try to take my clients with them. But there's another more important reason. And whatever you've heard, people don't buy from people. People buy from companies. So if a salesperson's arrogant enough to think that he can take 5 or 6 clients away from his last employer to his next employer, he's really misunderstanding what selling is about. Because people buy the credibility of your company, the quality of your service delivery, the quality of your service assurance, the ease of doing business with your financial teams. The salesperson is just the facilitator and the introducer to that. Farmers, they focus on retaining clients and winning incremental business. So keep them warm and comfortable, and they'll bring you business for years to come. Their job is to be the customer's ambassador back into your organisation. So pay them on invoice, because it is their job to make sure the client has a smooth journey. And you can expect farmers to stay with you for a long, long time. Farmers are usually very loyal, very settled, and are different kind of characters from hunters. Engineers with commercial nous make very, very good farmers. One of my favourite farming stories is the Quick Fit model. I took my car in to have a new exhaust on. The following night, Quick Fit called me to ask me if the experience had been good, and then offered me insurance services. Don't expect salespeople to be hunters and farmers at the same time. They can't. They're different kinds of people. A hunter, if he's got some accounts to look after, will be lazy and won't go out hunting enough. And a farmer will always put existing customers first and may miss opportunities to bring you new business. So how do I recruit the right salespeople, I hear you say? Well, write a clearly defined job description for hunters and a different one for farmers. Have a clearly defined set of values and build them into your recruitment process. Develop an incentive scheme that encourages the behaviour you need to require. Now, over the last few slides, we've covered a lot of detail. There is some supporting document on this web link on the members portal where you can download white papers about recruiting these people, about how to manage them, how to manage their pipelines. Let's very quickly look at professional sales behaviour. I asked a client in the IT sector a couple of weeks ago what he thought defined the good salesperson, and his answer was this. They must be good at talking, they need to be persuasive and assertive, they must be able to present every aspect of their product in great detail, and they must know how to close a deal at the right moment. That is completely wrong. This is what the salesperson that will generate growth looks like. First of all, they must be good at listening. They have to ask the right probing questions, listen, and most important of all, understand the prospect's answers to those questions. They need to be caring and empathetic, and they need to be thinking all the time about what the client or the prospect is looking for and what they need. It's not about how good you are or how good your services are. It's about how your services can help them, in my example earlier, make more candles more profitably. They must be able to understand the customer's business needs. It's not all about knowing about your products and services. We can bring engineers and technical people in to support the sale. The salesperson's skills must be focused on doing business. And they must know how to identify the compelling event, which again I'm going to talk about in a moment, and deliver a credible solution. So let's very quickly introduce the sales execution process. This is a process like any engineering process, any quality assurance process. Selling is not about emotion and gut feeling. It's about doing things in a professional and structured way. And this is what a sales process looks like. we've got prospecting, we've got qualification, we deliver the proposition. We may have to put a written proposal in depending on the nature of the service that we're offering. We then have to negotiate, reach agreement, and then we have to onboard the customer and make sure that they buy from us further services again. Underpinning all of those sections are credibility. We must establish our credibility at every step, and we are always closing. Closing is not an event, it's a process. When we qualify the customer, we need to understand that we've got all of our needs. So is there anything else that you need to ask me? Is there anything else that I need to understand before I start telling what my solution is? When we deliver the proposition, we need to ask questions. How do you feel about what you've seen? Is it what you were looking for? When we present the price and present the budget, does that meet your budget? Is that what you expected? We're closing all of the time, not step by step. Establishing credibility is a twofold thing. We need to establish the credibility of the individual salesperson, and we need to establish the credibility of the company. The people on this screen probably don't have to establish their credibility, it's proven. However, your sales team and your company probably don't enjoy that kind of global recognition just yet, although some of you may do in the future. So, we need to establish our credibility at every stage. The salesperson needs to establish their own credibility. The company needs to be established. The product and service needs to have some credibility. The price needs to be credible. The delivery does, and the ongoing customer care does as well. So supply them with case studies. Supply them with references from existing clients. No one sells the company better than a customer talking on a video. Use YouTube. Collect references and referrals from customers, because the most compelling advice that your client or prospective client can receive is from somebody who's already bought and shared your services before. I think we've run out of time, so I'm going to hand back to Paul Fileman now.
Thanks very much indeed, Steve. I don't know if there's any questions anybody wants to pose, but I've got one for you, Steve, which is, you talked about making sure the salesperson's values aligned. Have you got any guidance for how you actually could do that in the interview process?
Yes, well, first of all of our clients write 5 bullet points which highlight the things they do and they don't do, and publish them on the website, and we use it in the recruitment process when we're advertising for candidates. What we then do at the interview process is ask questions, and the way I do it personally, I set a scenario, and if they don't answer the question in the way I would answer the question, I don't give them the job. So, for example, it might be about how they calculate and offer a discount. It might be about what they say and how they say it. So I paint a picture and ask them what they would do, and if it doesn't meet with our company values, they don't get the job.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Steve, and thank you everybody for listening. We're from Transmentum. If you want to know more about us, you'll find us on the web, and I believe there's some downloads that Kaseya have arranged for you to get access to. Cheers. Goodbye now.
Goodbye. Thank you.